drug fund?
So as you know, we've got our new Durangos in that we ordered last year. When looking at some things logistically with our fleet, I was approached by Lieutenant Herco, and he began in discussion with me about possibly purchasing an additional vehicle for the detective division with our drug asset funds. This purchase would actually allow us to do a little maneuvering with the cars we purchased, and it would allow us to push those more back into patrol as opposed to CID. It would take our admin cars that still have good life left on them and fairly decent mileage, and push those up into CID, and then provide them with this new vehicle if we purchased it with drug fund money. So we currently have about $80,000 in our drug fund. That is something that we historically don't dig into a whole lot. When I pushed it out to everybody about some potential uses, their recommendation back to me was to look at maybe purchasing this vehicle. The quote we got for the F-150 that they're requesting is $55,625. We're looking at about $6,300 worth of equipment to outfit it. Again, this would all be drug fund money. So that would put it at about $61,885, $62,000 to purchase the truck and the equipment needed to go in it. Then again, that would allow us to make some of those shifts around, push these new Durangos down into patrol, and then probably and hopefully would reduce our ask in next year's budget cycle for vehicles.
I think that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, it's just one truck.
Just one truck, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So as you know, I just want to kind of piggyback on the last thing the chief said. Next year, we're expecting to have a pretty solid push in public works for needing vehicles, and we're going to need more landscapers, which means the truck and additional equipment. By using this drug fund money, which does not come out of the general fund, for this purchase, to reduce his ask, which allows me to roll that into public works next year. And it gets our last charger off of assignment onto the line, correct?
I believe it will, at that point, I believe everybody will be in a chart or a Durango. There may be one, my math is fuzzy, but I think that'll put every officer in a Durango at that point. And again, we're very fortunate. Our fleet is in great shape due to the hard work of Wayne and the commission and me and everybody supporting it. So, and then if we just maybe add this one, I think we'll be in really good shape rolling in for a year or so.
Out of curiosity, why an F-150?
That was their ask. They're a little cheaper than Durangos, and since it's used for undercover things, it's slightly less conspicuous than our silver Durango floating around town. So
I think they have more room in the cab too, wouldn't they?
they have more room, a little more room for things. Plus, we're going to put a box in the back for their equipment. There's a lot more room in the back than in the small back hatch in the Durango.
Any more discussion? If not, we will move to the merry-go-round update. So if you saw in your package, the inclusive whirl was in there. It came in at a much lower cost, and what we would like to do is bring this as a change order to the commission as part of the renovation. This whirl does have a braking system on it. I'm not sure the life expectancy on that. But that pricing came in much better than the initial numbers. We will still be a hair over on the total remodel, but not a tremendous amount. Any feedback?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me ask you this. So we talked about several different ones of the ones that go in circles, whatever. Let's get my mind.
This one's called
Did
the
you-
inclusive whirl.
Did you go look at any of these?
No.
I think you were going to, right?
I was going to go, I was planning to go up towards out of town and look at it. I only circled around parks that were nearby, and I didn't really see one that was like that. But I did talk to, who was it I talked to? My mind's vagued. Someone that said they have used them before, their child or something. I was just a very, very limited conversation with somebody that was here at the parks talking about it, because we were kind of looking at it.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Chattanooga installed one of these. I think it was this
They-
model.
That was,
I'm not sure if it was this model or
Yeah.
not. They did
But that's-
just cut the ribbon on. one
That's-
similar.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one I was
Exactly.
going to look at. So I didn't know, there was a difference between that one you're talking about.
But this updated pricing was much more tolerable, so it,
It's got a breaking too.
So let me ask you this. So I'm not seeing for somebody in a wheelchair, do they have to be secured in there with some type of mechanism?
they roll onto it. I'm not exactly sure how they are secured to it.
There's usually things at the bottom.
They just lock
There's-
the
but
wheel
there's nothing on
against
these.
it.
There's nothing on them.
I'm not certain on that. It appears from the diagram, they would roll on and just lock the wheels with their back up against the rail.
Yeah, and there's usually, I need to ask Christine about that, because there's usually straps or something that locks with the wheels to keep it stationary on the,
And they may
Just like you do in the
not be
bus.
It's just not showing. I mean,
yeah.
I want to make sure
On the
they're
bus.
safe. You know, I don't know how fast these truly go. I mean, merry-go-round, but I remember as a kid,
Even on buses.
they could be pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, that was back when we could get our dirt bikes and
Yeah.
spin them with it.
But from my understanding, that it's kind of like when you ride a special ed bus, they're rolled on, and even though the wheels are locked,
Mhm.
they are attached, on the bar, they're attached to the floor of the bus. You can't really see it, but it secures them so that it doesn't move,
And we can
because
get,
that was a concern.
I get that detail before, when we bring it to the
And I
commission.
think
Yeah,
this
I'm
has,
just curious. I can see that because you going at higher speeds, but
yeah,
I just don't know if it needs one. I just,
I'll ask Maggie and just get her answer and then let you know when we bring it to you.
because yeah, lots of them, parents get on, they don't really go fast with them. But still, you get an older child on there with them, they may say, hey, pew, let's go, you know. But normally they have another locking mechanism other than just the brakes on the wheelchair, or even a rolled one.
does the city feel this is the right one for us?
I think the city feels like this one threads the needle on cost and usage. I don't know what phrase this. I describe this as the Toyota of these, which feels the need on the usage of it versus the price. The other one, I would describe as the Cadillac, and it priced itself out of competition.
Okay.
Yeah, well, and even Toyotas are really made well. My husband's a Toyota man. He's parts and service. Wow. Yeah.
Okay. That's all the questions I had.
If you take care of it, the maintenance, it should last a long time.
We're a Toyota family as well.
So if there's no more questions on that, we'll move over to the Little Debbie
Yeah.
Park rental management. So this came up a little while back, and then last week or so, we had the issue with the campaign rally. In talking to Sam, it's very difficult and very sticky on us regulating what can and can't be, what falls under free speech in our park system. With this park in particular being branded makes it even more sensitive to those types of items. So what my recommendations is that the Collegedale Tomorrow Foundation is going to take over management of the facility. They would then get the revenue from that management, which is going to be $25,000 to $30,000 a year. We would simply expand or duplicate their lease that they have for the Commons property over there. But since they're not a government entity, they have a lot more leeway on deciding who can and can't utilize the space. And again, they would then be compensated through the rental that we would not be receiving. And then I will continue to work with Sam on trying to find some language for the rest of our park system. But his initial read was really, you have to let one, you have to let all. And it's pretty broad and very difficult to regulate. Chattanooga attempts to regulate it. Where that falls in the legal house, I'm not sure yet. You can pass any rule you want, right? Doesn't mean that you can enforce any rule. Yeah. And so I don't know yet if that's where they are, where they said no political rallies, but they honestly can't enforce it. But in the short term, it'll be pretty easy for me, in the course of a couple of weeks, I'll just have Sam add an addendum to the original lease that just says it includes the park and the parking lot as well. And CTF will take over maintenance of the parking lot and the running of the rental in exchange for that $30,000 a year.
Like you said, they're going to take over keeping it up and all that.
The parking lot, they're already
Parking.
keeping up the park with our public works. It's that relationship is probably the best it can be. At times, it would be easier if it was a little better defined. But, we have to insure those areas. We have to put utilities on them, et cetera. But Chris not having to take over the landscaping aspect of the parking lot, I think he would be a fan of.
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a lot when Epsom Pike gets turned over to us. Maintaining the playground and some of the safety surfaces is fine. That's a large area of landscaping to take on.
So that's my proposal on that. If the commission generally feels that that's appropriate, I'll get Sam to either update or draft a lease agreement that is essentially identical minus the description of the area. That's the one that we had before.
Let me ask you this. So we also talked a couple meetings ago about they would schedule the pavilions and stuff.
For over
It
there.
would come off of rec desk.
Is that in the process or is that a done deal now?
As soon as they sign the
Definitely.
lease.
Because I definitely think we need to have some type of board up there that's it's locked that says this park or the pavilion is reserved for.
So as soon as we have the lease, they would take over all of that.
Okay.
scheduling And signage, et cetera. So if the commission's good with that, Commissioner Sadler, you were saying something.
He took it out of my mouth.
I think it'd be less confusing too, if we keeping this separate from up there where it talks about renting the facilities and stuff. So there's no overlapping, only one person in charge.
I'm just concerned about it being branded and that rally showed a weakness in our ability to regulate things. And while I don't know how the donor felt about this particular group, I can imagine other groups that they would find objectionable material that we would have no way of regulating. And was absolutely not in their ideas with the gift. Okay.
And with David taking over the parking lot, will he mow that or will Chris still do that?
David would. That's what we've talked about now.
Okay.
Is that he'd take over that as a campus. And basically the trade-off would be at the creek.
Okay.
And just to follow up on expansion next year, Chris is going to have 40% more right-of-way to maintain just with the Appleton Pike and the additional Greenway section come August. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to number 5. This is the Skyball Scram Lease that Ryan's going to lead out on. This is the entrepreneur using the TDOT Jobs Creation Grant. We've had several back and forths. These are close to final. I don't necessarily want to say final, but very close to final terms on the lease.
Yeah, so this is the most recent provision that has been made to this proposed lease here. Not really any notable things that I would consider. The biggest thing was under the land development, we just did want to include the clause that basically states, that both parties are relying on the state grant, obviously, to get us through this. Neither of us control that. As of this time, we're still waiting on all the environmental stuff, which has continued to be the biggest hindrance with this schedule. So we did want to put that in, but we're of the understanding that we do want to turn this project over to him as soon as possible. But yeah, like I say, nothing super notable. If there's any comments, things to consider.
There was one area that still had working notes. Was that meant to still be in there, or should this be like draft, like final draft?
The working notes was for this conversation.
Well, it was like working notes to Sam, the attorney.
Do you remember which? I can pull it up.
Maybe section 5. That feels good. Spot.
Would it be,
Oh, the eminent domain?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there was a section there I know that he had some question over. I have not seen any further correspondence between Sam answering those questions.
Once we get that answered, though.
Okay.
It's getting close to final, but not final.
Okay.
So Ryan, were you able to contact Mark regarding the environmental issues?
I did. We actually had a good conversation about it. Again, they were the folks that did the geotech work for us. At this point, we're still just waiting on a scope of work. We're still waiting to hear back from TWRA, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which were a few of the agencies that we needed to coordinate with. So we're still waiting to really get a scope of work from them before we can contract it out.
So what type of work are they wanting?
That's, like I say, that's what we're waiting to find out. They have, as with many of these agencies, they have not been super great in their communication. I believe who you'd referred to would be a great lead. They seem to have done that work before, but at this point, I'm still just waiting with Garver to find out what that scope is going to be.
So TDOT has essentially said you have to check all these boxes with Army Corps, et cetera. And we've reached out to Army Corps as an example and said, what study do you need so that we can hire somebody to do it, and haven't been told.
Okay.
And this is, again, this is the NEPA process that slows down these grants so badly is TDOT wants to make sure that we don't omit anybody, great intention, but they get so many parties involved that take 30 and 60 plus days to even give us a scope for us to then go hire it done to get it,
Right.
that it slows us down. And that's kind of where we are is
Mhm.
no one from the Corps has called us back yet. TWRA going into hunting season hasn't told us how we demonstrate that there's not a deer there, as an example. And I'm just happy that we haven't.
We've got plenty of deer.
We haven't had to do a bat study.
Yeah. So we're just still kind of in this holding pattern of getting that information before we can go and contract it out. But yeah, like I say, if there was any questions or things that you wanted us to address in this lease, by all means. But other than that, like I say, not really super big notable changes that we found.
May I ask a question? I don't know if it's feasible here or not, but I know that when I worked with Hamilton County, especially with developing playgrounds and things like that, I got the Army Corps of Engineers to come in and they volunteered and did all the work free of charge. And they did it to their specifications that was outlined that they had to meet. Would that be something we could use here? That would, it eliminates costs, but
We will certainly ask. The Army Corps, I'm guessing that was a little while back.
yeah, that's 8 years ago.
The Army Corps used to be a lot more proactive across the board on the projects that they would undertake. And that has been pulled back probably due to funding and staffing and
Yeah.
all those items.
Employment.
It may be as simple with the Corps as the example. If we can get them on site, they can agree that
Mhm.
there's nothing there for us to have study. Same thing with TWRA.
Right.
Come out here and see it's mowed grass at the end of a runway. There's nothing that needs to be studied. They've got to return a phone call to show.
To be able to.
And we'll get through that as soon as we get them to respond.
Yeah, so I imagine all these requests are just sitting on somebody's desk, as they have been for the past few weeks. So hopefully, within the next few weeks that we'll get some answers and we can go ahead and continue on. But anyway, that's where we're at the moment.
Anything else on the lease?
One quick question. Under, I forgot what page it was on. It said the lessor and the leasee may reach an agreement to operate fuel truck or fuel cells in support of the lessee's business operation. Does that mean that Jay will sell jet fuel at a higher
So
price than ours, or?
that actually brings another conversation that I did want to include. I was going to wait till we did our round robin type of thing. But to answer that question, no, we would have to limit that any fuel purchase would have to come through us first.
That's what I thought it should.
Yeah, so it wouldn't basically be another entity contracting fuel out. They would have to come through us and then sell it.
You know, these attorneys, they make it so difficult to understand sometimes.
He can buy fuel from us and resell it.
Right.
I understand that.
But at the same price.
Or even at a margin, but it has to be bought from us first.
Okay.
That's the way I understood that.
Yeah. Or we could reach some kind of agreement to sell it maybe at a slightly discounted rate or something like that, just to move it. But it, basically the language should state something to the effect of it's not a separate fuel contract where they're contracting it out on their own.
So is this fuel truck that we've talked about for some time
That's
now?
where he was about to go.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go.
Yeah, so into last week, I did get notification from Titan that they have got a truck ready, or it's in the very late stages of being ready. We did have some more conversations about that as things have changed since we inquired about it about a year and a half ago when it came up before. So what was a $500 month lease, they are now telling me it's a $1,000 month lease. Their answer for why that is simply because supply and demand, their supply chain with trucks is very short. They have a lot of demand for it, and so their terms have simply changed and they've had to increase their rates. So the lease rate itself is doubled, and I heard that from our sales rep as well as their own guy that handles the truck side of things. When we're looking at, liability, we do have to get insurance on the truck for Titan as well as for us. And we have to get a hangar keeper's insurance just in case there's any incidents that occur with it. The initial quotes that I've gotten back are between $3,000 and $4,000 for that.
Annual cost?
Yes. We are, per their lease, which I received earlier today, we are responsible for any of the mechanical repairs, truck repairs, hoses, nozzles, grounding straps, filters, which is one thing we do on our fuel tanks now. And those are about $2,200. So we'd have to do that's a yearly thing that we do for avgas and jet. So that would apply for this as well. They do recommend training. It's not required, but they do strongly recommend that whoever's operating the truck gets training to do so. ACE training, quality control training, that kind of thing. So we'll have to look and kind of see that's probably going to be more of an insurance driven thing, I would imagine. So I'll get more clarity on that. But really just wanted to make everybody aware and make sure that this is a avenue that we want to go down. Obviously at this point, we've got $300,000 that was allocated to us in those back taxes that we're using for various repairs and deferred items that we need to do. And so this truck would have to come out of that, obviously, because the enterprise fund airport budget would not support this. We've tried to figure out how this would work. For me, the way that I've been able to look at it is we would have to price our fuel substantially higher really than any of our competitors in order for us to make a profit. Of course, the difference with us is because we are non-NIPIAS, we're just a state-funded airport, we don't get any of those federal subsidies that all of our surrounding competition does. There's a website, the mayor would be familiar with it, airnav.com. You can kind of search all of the fuel prices within a 50-mile radius of your airport. And right now where I have our avgas, our jet fuel price, our self-serve jet fuel, which is what we currently offer, we have that priced about the same price as what full-service fuel is being offered within 50 miles. And obviously we have to do that because we have to make a profit, whereas those others are federally funded. They get subsidies to offset all those costs. We don't do that. So we are forced to make a profit. And so in order for us to make a profit with a fuel truck in this type of situation with the enterprise fund model and whatnot, we would have to price that fuel substantially higher just to break even. Of course, last year we sold about $11,000 worth in profit of jet fuel, which isn't a lot. And that amount alone would have to cover the whole cost of the truck. So just that alone would be a big negative implicative factor for the truck. So we're trying to figure out a way to make it work. But again, with the enterprise fund model, I have not been able to find a way to make that work and still turn a profit and make it pay for itself over time. So just kind of wanted to open the floor up for any thoughts on that. It's hard for me to recommend that as the airport director, given the funds and the challenges that we have with the budget, and that all those projects that we had allocated before through that $300,000 that was given has been allocated to other projects already. So if we did something like this, we would have to reduce those projects that we've already chosen and viewed as being priority to use for this truck here. There isn't really anybody on the airport besides just a couple people that would use it and the occasional, jet turbine airplane. So it's certainly my opinion that there wouldn't be a lot of volume-based sales with this. So it's just all these factors. I just want to make sure that, we are thinking through and it is something that we want to explore.
That's a lot of money.
It is.
So here's the deal. If you or your company owns a jet, you're going to go to AirNav, which I've got it pulled up right now, and you're going to see, with this Collegedale where I want to go, do they have a fuel truck? Because a jet engine is such that every time you start that jet engine, you're putting what's called a cycle on that engine. It's like putting 1,000 miles on your car. It reduces the value of that engine and that jet. So the way we have it with a self-service fuel pump is you pull up to the terminal, you drop your passengers off, and what we're asking them to do is, oh, by the way, if you need fuel, go 100 yards that way, restart your jet, go down there, and then come back and get your passengers. And they're not going to do it. I've only known of one jet that the pilot, in his own words, made the mistake of coming to Collegedale, said he would never come back and pump his own fuel. Jet owners don't pump their own fuel. They're a different commodity, but I can tell you they buy a whole lot of fuel. When a jet pulls up, depending upon the size of the jet, they may buy $3,000 or they may buy $8,000 worth of fuel. So it's not like a Cessna 150 that's putting $50 worth of fuel in the tank. They're buying a lot of fuel. Ultimately, what we want to do is to keep the jet and the turboprop that we have at Collegedale that burn jet fuel. But with Skyboss coming in, what we're doing is we're appealing to jet owners to move their jets to Collegedale. If we don't have a fuel truck, they're not going to do it. I'm telling you, it's just, they're going to be very reluctant to be able to do this. I think we need to, in my opinion, find a way to make this work. I don't know. I think we need to brainstorm before we kill the idea.
What happened to purchasing it? I thought that's what we were doing. We had people that were going to be willing to help purchase it. What happened to that?
They were paying the lease and they've already donated $6,000 and that's what's doubled.
Yeah.
And that did not include any of the operational costs as well. So I think what Ryan's trying to say is on paper, we're going to lose money on this. And we want the commission to be comfortable taking the risk with the opportunity. Yes, they buy a lot of fuel. They do. But if a year from now, we have not doubled jet fuel sales, we're not even. Not even. And I would expect on a lease, these costs are going to continue to go up. And so we just want to be very clear with the commission on paper, this is a money loser. And we're going to have to put a lot of faith in more than doubling fuel sales over the course of a year to even get back to even, which is a risk. It's a real risk. And we just want to be very plain when we say going down this road it doesn't pencil out immediately. We're also in the situation that we will continue to have limited staff hours in those sorts of situations. So there won't always be someone there to pump fuel. To Ryan's point, the commission did move a substantial amount of money over. We can take the loss out of that money. There will be something else that's not purchased because of it. But we can float it, but we want to have a real sharp eye on this after a year or two, that if we're still losing money, a different approach may occur. Now, if Skyboss comes and fuel sales go up, right, 6 times, right? Because 12 planes, we've only got 2 there. That's a 600% increase. A 600% increase in fuel, absolutely. We're in a completely different situation.
Yeah, completely would justify it at that point. And, like I say, these are just the initial things that I've come up with since these conversations on Thursday. And it's just to ensure that we do know what kind of risk we are taking. And again, it all has to do with that enterprise fund, making sure that we are not taking a loss at the end of the year. And keeping in mind that the reason it does work with all of these other competitors is simply because they do get those funds to offset fuel. That's why we, as some of us are aware, is we'll never be able to compete with some airports of similar size that can sell fuel for almost $1 cheaper than I am, simply because they can sell fuel near cost and they can use those federal subsidies to offset that, whereas we cannot. So it's just the business model, the approach to that is different.
Well,
Whereas it is kind of an apples to oranges comparison.
And to put it in context, we're currently charging $5.35 a gallon for jet fuel. Wilson Air Center at Level Fuel is charging $6.58. So that's $1.23 more per gallon than what we are charging.
And we would probably have to sell it over $2 to $2.50 a gallon to really make sure we're making a profit.
So let
That's
me,
beyond our cost though, right?
That would be, so I would get the fuel, if it's $3 a gallon at wholesale, I would have to mark it up $2 to $2.50 a gallon just to ensure that we are making a profit.
Which puts us on par with what Wilson Air Center is charging.
What's Chattanooga charging?
Chattanooga's charging $6.58.
So if you look at the average though, so like what is at the top, it'll say what the average price is.
Average is $5.42, but that doesn't take into account fuel trucks. It takes into account self-service
Yeah.
and fuel trucks.
There should be a full service. You can see kind of what full service is if you just kind of scroll down through there.
Cleveland has got us beat because they offer a fuel truck
Right,
and their fuel truck is the same as their self-service.
right. We would not be able to do that. We'd have to charge a premium on top of our self-serve.
But the point is a jet owner is going to go where it's most convenient.
Right,
And they're not going to fly into Cleveland to drive to Collegedale.
right. And like I say, I fully agree. I just want to make sure that we understand what these risks to a loss on paper can be. And just make sure it's something that the commission is comfortable in doing. Certainly, whatever the will of the commission is, if you want to proceed, we will, but I just at least want to make that aware ahead of time in case there is a issue in the future.
So is there any possibility of a used truck?
So this truck that we're getting is a used truck. This was the lowest. So here's just for reference, this is the cheapest truck that we could get that Titan offers. They have newer trucks where he told me there are some that are $1,500 to $2,000 a month for their leases. So this is like the lowest end that they offer, and it is a used older truck. Yeah, and the pictures that they sent do confirm that.
so let me ask you this. So you mentioned more jets coming into Collegedale. You're talking about hangar wise or?
Well,
Transient's what I understand.
Skyboss will have more hangar space for jets. But I'm talking about transients as well as based tenants.
Unless more spaces come open, we're not planning on building hangars anytime in the near future.
Well, that's where Skyboss fills that niche because we're not looking at jets beyond Skyboss,
Okay.
the hangar space they have available.
But how many is he gonna be able to store in that? I thought it was like 3.
No, I'll have to look. I'm thinking, depending upon the size of the jet, if it's just a Vision jet, it's no more than a single engine piston aircraft. But I don't think he's looking to draw. I think he's got some Vision jets that are looking to come into Collegedale, but I don't think he's looking at a larger jet
Was
taking
around,
that hangar. So I'm thinking 6 or 7
but it could be as many as 10.
could be.
I don't see where they're gonna put that on that little
So
corner
if
lot.
there is a proposed floor plan that he sent, in his floor print he has here, he has 2 Vision jets included in that, and then 3 smaller piston Cirrus airplanes. So there would be 2 additional, according to this blueprint that has here, there would be 2 airplanes that would burn the jet fuel.
So that would get us to 0.
So,
We've been there before.
and
Well, I mean, the additional,
Sales.
right now, we're going to 0 or $1,000 loss based on 2 planes burning it. If he adds 2, it gets us back to net $11,000, $12,000 a year.
yeah, and I do, also just want to make clear too, that we want to make sure that it's going to be known. We're going to advertise it as best we can. I'm certainly going to publish it on all of the sources. I'll probably make a flyer on the Facebook group. I mean, we're going to try to do everything we can to broadcast it. But obviously those are still, just to be honest, they are assumptions. I mean, we hope that we can get additional traffic. We hope we can drive additional traffic. But those are just assumptions that we're making. So again, it just goes back to just making sure that we're comfortable with the risk.
So I don't want to jeopardize what we've done from a safety perspective.
Mhm.
I mean, once we get the go ahead and we start breaking ground, I think maybe at that point we look at a fuel truck, but if I had to vote on it today, I'm not sure I'd vote on it.
So that was going to be the next recommendation that I would make, because just to make clear, I'm not against the idea of a fuel truck. I just want to make sure that it is supportive with our enterprise fund model. And the thought that I had is that as this development, begins to break ground, like you just mentioned, and you beat me to it, is
I read your notes.
so at that point, we would have more traffic and we'll know about it. At that point, it'll be a confirmed type of thing where we can make a better business decision off of. So that's just kind of where my head goes. Again, I'm not trying to stop this. I think a fuel truck certainly would help our growth, and I want to do it, but we also have to consider that enterprise fund and the restrictions that come with it.
So every airport worker, part-time, full-time, would drive this truck?
So my idea would be that our desk workers would primarily be the driver of it. Of course, I can fill in, we can have the others fill in where needed, but primarily it would be that the part-time desk staff, yes. And that's generally how it is at most other airport of our size that I've seen. It's generally their desk staff that take care of the truck.
Is there any risk, because we've been talking about this truck for a long time, getting it. So if we tell them, hey, we want to push it back till March.
So I can have that conversation with them and just state where we can kind of still stay in line, maybe keep our place in line, and just, kind of give them the expectation that, hey, in 4 or 5 months from now, maybe 6 months from now, we will be ready to, take control of the truck. But we're just still trying to put ourselves in that position where we can comfortably do so. It's a conversation I can have if that's the will of the commission, however everybody feels comfortable with.
By putting off, my concern is if we keep putting off, I'm not in the idea of losing money. I mean, we were in that situation with the airport.
Right.
So we're trying to dig out of that,
Mhm.
but I don't want to go backwards and trying to go forward. I mean, it's like the saying, you spend a little money to make a little bit of money.
Right.
My concern is we're going to lose these people if we don't buy or lease the fuel truck. Will they wait for us to be able to be in a position to do that, as you're stating? Or do we need to run the risk
Well, I
of,
think that's a question Ryan needs to ask.
or running the risk? Because if, so we wait 5 months, all right, we're in a position to purchase it, but
Mhm.
then we don't have the people that need it.
They're
So-
not tenants yet.
Yeah, they wouldn't be tenants yet because we wouldn't be turning a pad over to him until June 1st. He would still
Okay.
have to build it. And so the grand opening proposal wouldn't be until the end of next year, like December.
Okay,
So even if we were to kind of push this back, say 6 months, at that point, he would still be under construction. At that point, the tenants wouldn't be there
we
yet.
still have some time to.
Right. So like I say, from my own mindset, it would just kind of make more sense from a business perspective where we have more confirmed information to make a decision from.
See, I can agree with that. My concern was because we've pushed back on certain,
Right.
trying to get this. And then we got it lined up for people that are willing to come in, and then, hey, are we going to lose this? Then
Right.
we
Yeah,
start-
this wouldn't be doing that. We would just basically be anticipating his grand opening type of
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that, Mayor?
Yeah, I think we need to ask the tenant, and I know from the existing tenants' perspective, it is frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally is like saying, let me just put an extra 1,000 miles on your card to take it to the gas station. It's frustrating, it's costly.
Right.
But I think as a city, we have to look at all the avenues. We have to look at where we are. We have to make sure that we're not, long-term putting ourselves in a money-losing proposition, but ultimately the goal is for this to become a profitable venture.
Absolutely.
And I think it can be.
Right. And like for me, it's hard for me to like pull other projects that we've already found to be priority and everybody's excited about that we're doing. And then kind of reallocating that money for this where most of our tenants, 95%, would not be utilizing. So my recommendation at this point would just be simply to wait a little bit closer to the grand opening of this business where we know that we can make a better business decision from.
Okay.
Any additional conversation? We will move on. Anything else, Ryan?
So we got the interior of the terminal building almost completed. We're about to start on furnishings. I hope to have the whole terminal refresh done probably in the next 2 weeks or so. And then we will also have a few other items, again, with the money that's been delegated at the next commission meeting for approval. So looking forward to that.
Andrew?
Good evening. Just want to give everybody a heads up. I spoke with my counterparts with the city of Chattanooga, and they're looking at transitioning to the 2023 electrical code effective January. So I'm waiting to get feedback from them as to if they're looking at adopting it in January as is or with amendments, and if amendments, which those amendments, what those consist of, so we can pretty much follow suit as we have historically, so that way to maintain consistency with the jurisdictions around us. But just wanted to give you a heads up that we'll probably be presenting it to you all sometime first of the year or close to the end of this year. So that was it.
Chris?
The only thing I have, the playground, Imagination Station is scheduled for November 18th to begin installation. But we are going to be closing the playground, both playgrounds beginning next Monday, which would allow us time to do a lot of the bank stabilization, cleanup, tree removal, getting it ready for the new playground. We will have a temporary pedestrian route in place, so the greenway won't be closed, just be diverted. So again, that's beginning November 4th. We will remove the sections of fence. I know we still have kind of that, I guess, discussion of how we're going to disseminate those to people who want them. But we'll secure those and wait for the commission to determine what the best way to kind of get that information to the people who want that.
So we need to, number one, get on social media pretty quickly and tell them that the playground's going to be closed
I believe a
Press release.
press release is going out today.
today. Okay.
Correct.
That was the goal we were working on at the end of last week to start this week.
Correct.
But I think Public Work, the city, and also Park and Rec needs to have it on their website. While we're doing it, how long it's going to be closed.
Absolutely. And the only other thing, did you have something? Okay.
She's going to hit me.
The only other thing,
No,
just
exactly.
wanted to bring to your attention as part of the whole pump station modernization, that we're currently actually have bids due November 12th for the pumps. Part of the grant process requires us to have an asset management plan. If we don't submit it and get it approved, we basically forfeit funding. So we've asked Cannon & Cannon, who's doing our design, to give us a proposal. They have a not to exceed $20,000 proposal to us that we'd like to move forward with them, just to get this to submittal and approval. And that's all I have.
We have the best system in the entire area and the only one not under a moratorium, but our asset management plan was not adequate for the grant. So we need a more robust asset management plan to continue to be the best system. The duality of it is funny. Chief?
Well, obviously, our primary concern and focus the last week or so has been Corporal Hurd and his family. As you're all aware, we brought him home yesterday. We will continue to work with the family as they plan and prepare for the funeral. I do know it'll be locally here in Collegedale, and we'll release dates and times once the family has approved us to do so, and we'll release what they are comfortable with. I just would like to say the support, as somebody who's been in emergency services for 32 years, the support from our partnering local agencies and across the state has just humbled me that the the escort home yesterday, we had over 20 agencies from Knoxville to Chattanooga to bring him home. Every single exit, every intersection was stopped and blocked for us in Enoch, and that's just something I've personally never seen before. So extremely appreciative to our partnering and local agencies and agencies across the state. And I'll keep everyone informed again, according to the family's wishes on what they want released and not released. And we'll get that out to everybody.
Nothing from planning.
Nothing for finance.
I don't have anything. Commissioner Sadler,
I don't have anything.
Commissioner Baker,
Always.
Vice Mayor.
Well, I'm going to just tell you, I'm pretty dissatisfied with the government. Not this government body, but the ones that's working the disaster in Tennessee and North Carolina. I mentioned it to some friends over here earlier. I think they've let the people down. I think that the government said it'd take 2 months at minimum to cut a road in between Chimney Rock and Bat Cave. Now, a bunch of good old boys from West Virginia came in with their own personal bulldozers and stuff that they needed, and they cut it in a week. So people can get supplies in and out of that area. But it's all over. I mean, if you look at it, I've been up there, you're not seeing the government there helping. Yes, you do see the military. The military is helping up there. So I applaud them for that piece of it. But you're not seeing a lot of other people from the government helping these people. $750 doesn't go a long ways. And a lot of people being denied that up front, knowing that you have to do an appeal. And so I just think that, you know, you saw Katrina, they brought in all these mobile homes for people to live in for years. I haven't seen the government bring anything in. I may not have seen it on the news, or the news media hasn't said a whole lot about it. But if you look at Facebook and some of the reels that they have out there, I mean, you've got the preachers and the pastors of the churches saying this. And I don't think they lead you astray. I trust my friend here who's a pastor, and I don't think they make inappropriate statements like that.
I will not comment on that based on the number of people I argued with who got their news from reels while we were carrying supplies up.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot of good ones. So I don't look at some of these people say, well, you know, they're hijacking people. Well, I saw it firsthand. They're not hijacking it. If you go look at Bulladine and their community center, you'll see how they have all the stuff in there.
Government response, how did Ted put it? The only thing fast in government was bombs and something else?
Yeah. Bullets and maybe bullets. I don't know.
Bullets and bombs or
Yeah.
something. Government response, especially at that national level, is so bulky. It's so slow. And not that the individual is trying to do the work or trying to lay down and do it, but there's so much process. Just procurement. You know, it takes a month for us to procure something that a good old boy could just go write a check for that works as a form
But
of.
see, that's the thing about it. They have all these warehouses full of stuff. We know that, you know that,
Distribute it.
but they just don't get it out. I mean, that's the whole thing. I was just on my little bandwagon because,
I will say there are a lot of semis sitting just outside that area from running supplies in, and they're running, because my partner ships out of that area. And she said the number of phone calls she's getting now for her loads has gone up exponentially because of all the trucks carrying supplies in. They're getting anything they can to get back out. But to your point, you can still go to the Panhandle of Florida after Michael, which was from 6 years ago, and still see devastation, still see blue tarps on homes that are uninhabited. And in these types of events, we could do a lot better, we being our country. think
Yes, I agree.
Collegedale stood up and did.
I think the people of all the surrounding communities,
Yes.
the people from California who's come in, I'm planning on going up there the week of Thanksgiving and helping out, but one of those things I thought I had to say. I don't believe everything that's on the internet, don't get me wrong, but I believe some of these pastors and stuff and nonprofit organizations saying they're having problems. Now, the good people are all the communities bringing in all the heaters, propane and stuff like that, warm clothing. I think that we could have done, the government could have done a better job getting some of that stuff in there. That's it.
Well, to the Vice Mayor's point, I think it is the bureaucracy in the federal government system is very frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating. What is heartening, though, is to see the private response, to see how Americans are helping Americans, specifically how the volunteer state has really stepped up. We volunteered. I mean, we rocked it. And I'm very proud of our community, very proud of our region, what we've been able to do to help. But know that our brothers and sisters in that part of the world that are affected are going to need help for a long time. So your point is certainly well taken. Couple of things I've got. Where are we on Pine Hill Road?
So the contractors started the retaining wall installation of about 2 courses high. I think by the end of the week, that should be done. They're going to then start digging out for the piping, inlet structures, and be backfilling probably next week.
Okay, excellent. And we're kind of tentatively thinking reopening.
Probably, well, we got to work with the water company to reestablish their connection.
Did you ever find that fiber line?
Fiber line, we didn't find. It was apparently bored under the stream on the other side, so we think we're okay. I would say tentatively November 18th,
Okay,
which would be, what, 3 weeks?
okay. Second thing, last thing, there is a utility line down. You may have already been notified about it. And I don't know what the utility is. It may be likely cable. It's a small black line on McDonald Road just beyond Blair. It is laying in the road. Cars have been driving across it all weekend. But if you would take a look at that, it's at McDonald Road just beyond Blair where the S curves begin. And that's all I've got.
So did we ever figure out, maybe it's for the chief, what tractor trailer took down all the power lines on Talent Road?
Not that I'm aware of, no, sir.
Over the weekend, you mean?
Mhm.
That Sunday power outage? That was pretty widespread. Well, if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you, bud.
I'm trying.
I was so frustrated.